Welcome pilots, my name is Hybrid V and I'm here over Daymar in my Reliant Tana because I just wanted to have a quick free flight to have some time to talk with you all about something special coming to Star Citizen quite soon, and that is the inclusion of brand new ammo types for different types of weapons within the game. Now, what do I mean by these different types of ammo coming to the game? We already have ballistics and lasers, so what else could we possibly have? Well, to demonstrate, on my Tana here, I have two Pyroburst scatterguns. Pyrobursts are plasma scatterguns. However, in-game currently, they only function pretty much identically to lasers. So as you see, they fire a shotgun pattern. Now, in the past, they used to have a AoE damage effect, so they used to have splash damage in the impact area. I'm not entirely certain if they still do. I hardly ever use them. Indeed, anybody hardly ever uses scatterguns. They just don't do very effective damage. And the other thing is, this damage type is not any different than the laser scattergun that we already have in game, the Dominance series from Hurston Dynamics. They are practically identical in almost every way. They use energy and they do energy damage. They are not ballistics in any way. However, the new ammo system is going to be addressing this soon. So indeed, the Pyroburst and of course any other weapon that uses plasma ammo is going to have a much more different effect than it does currently. But let's take a step back and let's actually analyze some of these new ammo types coming in that showed up on the progress tracker a few months back. And those ammo types include Flak, Incendiary, Disarray, Plasma, and Distortion damage propagation. The last one not exactly being a different ammo type, but a change to an existing ammo type, and I kind of want to throw that in there just to kind of add a little bit more detail. Now, I'll throw up some footage of the progress tracker so you can check it out for yourself. Of course, there will also be a link to the progress tracker below, so if you want to see it for yourself, you can check it out there. But yeah, in this quarter, they have these different ammo types and changes to ammo being scheduled out. And I want to be very clear, and I want to emphasize that this is, again, the progress tracker, meaning this is what is scheduled for specific teams and for specific personnel like the engineers who are supposed to work on this. This does not mean that because it's scheduled for quarter 2 that it's somehow going to magically pop up in quarter 2 for patch 319. And I just really want to stress that because a lot of people who look at the progress tracker get confused thinking that what's in the progress tracker means that's when it's coming in. So when the engineer finishes working on flak ammunition at the end of May, then we're getting flak ammunition at the end of June with 319. That's not how it works. It is just simply scheduled work that hopefully gets done. I mean, the teams can be pulled off of that and sent somewhere else. We don't know. That's why they constantly are shuffling the progress tracker. They could have done work on that and then moved on and not put that into the next patch because it needs some other system. For example, in quarter 2 of 2022, mines were scheduled out. We don't know if it's done. We do know that it was simply scheduled back then and we don't have them in game. It could be that it was scheduled, it was worked on, they completed the work on it, and we don't have a mine layer in game for players. So while that work is done, we don't have a mine layer, therefore we can't have it in the PU. So we have to wait until the Nautilus comes in, for example. Okay, now with that caveat out of the way, let's actually start talking about these different ammo types. The first one I want to go over is Flak, which I briefly mentioned. According to CIG, Flak is a new damage type that triggers on proximity or expiration, causing a concentrated burst of shrapnel to damage targets in an area. So essentially this is a proximity fused warhead that will detonate in an area, spitting shrapnel everywhere. This is going to be perfect against light fighters, probably not against heavy fighters and heavy craft, because historically proximity fused detonating fragmentation is not very good against heavy armor. It's much better for shredding something that's a little bit lighter. This also means that it's probably going to be really, really good against missiles and torpedoes potentially. It's not exactly the most sophisticated weapon system. Even today, modern militaries don't really use flak at all. But in-game, it could definitely be considered probably a very cheap, cost-effective solution for dealing with enemy missiles and fighters, where if you had more money, you could probably spring for a better system like a dedicated minigun turret, or even hopefully we would have some type of maybe missile system that we could also use to counter missile batteries themselves, for example. So that's going to be an interesting solution. It also means that ground coverage for low-flying light fighters is going to get a little bit more spooky now, because now instead of having to worry about a Centurion with repeaters, that Centurion could maybe potentially put on some flak guns. Now all of a sudden you've got grenades detonating on your cockpit every 3 or 4 seconds, It's going to be pretty crazy, probably pretty cool. Looking forward to that. I also do wonder, since this is a brand new ammo type, if we're going to be able to switch ammo on our existing weapons that we have now, on top of maybe potentially having weapon systems that are specifically dedicated to being flak weapons. So for example, we have the C788 ballistic combine cannon, which already, or at least in the past, was splash damage. It may not be anymore. It changes, patch over patch, the splash damage changes. But that is an explosive warhead cannon. I'm wondering if that would, instead of being an impact cannon, you could, for example, swap the ammo out and put a big old flak proximity fuse warhead in there and actually have that be used to shoot at light fighters with. That'd be quite interesting. But we don't know. Again, we need more information from CIG on that. Next, we have Incendiary, which is quite exciting. According to CIG, Incendiary is a new ballistic projectile that burns on impact, causing the target to take damage over time, and potentially causing items in the environment to catch fire. So this is going to be pretty interesting because we do in real life have incendiary armor penetrating rounds, so this will probably be no different. I'm wondering how they're going to balance that. They could potentially make it less penetrative. We'll see. They're going to have a lot of leeway on that. But the main thing that's going to be scary about this is if you're in a multi-crew ship, you can get lit up by this stuff and your interior is now on fire and you're going to have to put that fire out. And that could be a huge hazard because it can start damaging component systems in there. It obviously can start injuring people. And later, I don't know if this is going to be anytime soon, but of course we do know that they're working on this later. It's going to start sucking out the oxygen of the systems from the life support systems aboard the ship. So it's going to be a big killer for at least multi-crew ships. For light ships, it also probably is going to be really annoying because fires are going to be chewing through your components pretty quick. But I'm assuming this is probably going to be way more effective against larger ships with an interior. So we'll see how that plays out. The next one is a quite interesting take on two existing ammo types and kind of combining them together, and that's Disarray Ammo. According to CIG, this is a new charged ballistic projectile that emits electromagnetic pulses, helping not only to damage the target, but also to disrupt power systems. So this is going to be quite interesting because it is going to combine the effects of, say, distortion weapons and, of course, the penetrating power and damage of ballistics. Now, it's not quite mentioned whether it's actually going to be similar in distortion weapons in that it does distortion damage. It just says that it affects power systems, so I'm wondering if that is only all what it affects or if it does have more of a distortion damage style effect. We'll see. But what's going to make that interesting is its penetration power from the ballistics aspect of it. So it's going to be armor penetrating. It can get deep into the hull of the ship and start hitting those components that are buried underneath all that armor, which is useful against, like, for example, a hammerhead, right? It has a lot of armor and protection from it, but if you hit it with this type of ammo when its shields are down, you're going to do quite a lot of damage. You're going to get through that thick hull armor, and you're going to start disrupting those systems underneath, causing a lot of headaches for the engineers and potentially crippling the ship in the process. So I think this is going to be probably a pretty good weapon against really heavy ships. I'm wondering if there's going to be a trade-off using this against light fighters. Maybe like it's over-penetrating, so it's not going to be as effective, because it says it emits pulses. So I'm wondering if the impact point where it stops is where that pulse is emitted, or if it just does it as it travels through the ship. It's going to be quite interesting to see how they're going to balance that. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll see how that shakes out. Next is Plasma, which is just a rework for Plasma, like my Pyroburst scattergun I showed you there. According to CIG, this is further work on this damage type will cause damage over time to actors, vehicles, and ships. Larger weapons of this type will also leave behind a hazard, causing further damage to anything in close proximity to it. This will fulfill the original vision we had for the plasma weapons we already have in-game and those we have planned for the future. So this is quite interesting. They made a distinction that larger weapon systems are going to leave these plasma fires kind of around. They're going to leave this fire burning hazard because, you know, plasma is just ionized gas. So this burning hot gases and fires are going to then leave a hazard. But like I said, it's only for the large weapon systems. The smaller weapon systems are not going to have this effect. So I'm wondering if they're just going to basically behave like normal energy weapons. Because we do have, for example, the Pyroburst, but we also have smaller ones like the Karna rifle is a plasma rifle. So I'm wondering if there's going to be changes to that behavior in any way. I mean, they specifically state here that it's not. Like, it's only going to be the bigger weapon systems. So it could be that direct impact actually doesn't leave a hazard, but it does effectively direct damage to that target hit. So for example, the Karna, maybe it hits a soldier and it does a light bit of damage over time effect, possibly. It's not explained here, guys. I'm just kind of throwing spitballing here. I am doing what's called theory crafting. I'm just kind of going based on the information they give us, and I'm just kind of spinning ideas that they could potentially come with it. Because these are conversations that they, of course, are having themselves or have already had and now are about to start work on this very soon. Ooh, gems. I haven't seen gems on the surface in a while, and I wonder if they put hand-bindable gems back on the surface, or I still have to go to caves. I used to miss doing hand mining on the surface every so often, just flying around lazily like this and then coming across some gems and then hopping out and just mining them just for fun. But now you have to go to caves, but I'm just gonna go check it out. But anyway, back to the show as I get distracted here. So this aggravated damage, I think people are going to be asking about, like, well, what difference is it from fire? Well, like I said, plasma is ionized gas. It burns extremely hot. So this stuff is going to be melting a lot more stuff than, say, the incendiary ammo will. Because the incendiary ammo will probably melt stuff, of course, but it's mostly just going to be setting things on fire. Whereas plasma will not only set things on fire, it is going to just start melting straight through the hole. It's going to probably be pretty good for stripping armor on ships, in fact, when you think about it. And the last one I wanted to talk about is not actually a new ammo type, it's actually a change to an existing ammo type. And I kind of wanted to throw that in here because it's also going to upend the existing system that we're used to. And that is the changes with distortion damage, more specifically distortion propagation. According to CIG, this is further work on this damage type to allow correct propagation into systems. This makes the location of impact much more important, as powered systems that are closer to the impact point will begin to suffer more severely. This will fulfill the original vision we had for the distortion weapon systems we already have in-game and those we have planned for the future. And this change right here is quite fascinating to me because currently right now distortion weapons just affect the ship by causing distortion damage. Quick recap if you're not aware, distortion damage essentially will start damaging components not on a health pool system but by building up distortion damage. When a component system is full of distortion damage as it builds up to the max, it will eventually shut down. In the past, they would almost always be the coolers that would shut down and basically would brick your ship. More recently, they changed it so that way power plants are more targeted automatically by distortion damage. So when a power plant gets shut down by distortion damage, it basically is off for, I think the current time is like around almost like 5 minutes or something like that. But now they're creating a point impact system, which is making distortion damage much more interesting. So wherever you're shooting the weapon system now, wherever it impacts, anything around that area is going to be affected rather than it just simply being the power plant or just the entire ship or whatever it was like it was in the past. So this is going to be quite interesting. Remember, thrusters and engines also count as components in CIG's eyes. So this means that, let's say you have distortion cannons on your ship and you're chasing a hammerhead with your squadron of fighters and you're trying to stop this hammerhead from moving too fast. You want it to slow down. You could potentially just aim at the rear end of the ship with those cannons and start hitting those main engines and really start to slow it down. Alternatively, you can start hitting towards the midsections and start hitting some of the cooling systems or whatever. You have to really pinpoint where you want this distortion damage to really take place and start affecting the systems aboard that ship. And of course, this at night is not mineable, so just go back to the ship and just go back to free flying. And that pretty much covers all the changes for ammo that we are seeing them getting ready to start work on for this quarter. Now, that does leave a lot of questions that I have for CIG, and I'm curious what you all think about it as well. And the first and foremost one is, it seems like a lot of this stuff here, particularly for that damage propagation system for the distortion damage, is not really that useful, at least currently right now, because all the ships in game just fly at Mach stupid. So the idea of having a pinpoint system for hitting specific areas of the ship does not seem really that useful. So I think they're trying to take into account a lot of these weapon type ammo systems, as well as this new distortion propagation system, to take into account to work with the new master modes that they are working on, which they want to further slow combat down, right? And when you slow combat down, the idea of precision shooting individual components on the ship with, for example, distortion weapons is going to make much more sense. It also will make more sense for, I guess you could say, distortion disruptor, or Disarray Ammo. Got to learn that now. That's a new new parlance we got to learn on that one. But also the Incendiary Ammo is going to be interesting because you're going to want to target individual compartments, but you can't do that if you're flying at Mach stupid. So this really is going to make more sense when Master Modes comes in. whenever that will be. But overall, I think these changes, whenever they're implemented, are going to make combat much more three-dimensional, because I've mentioned this in the past before. Combat is very two-dimensional simply because we have a health pool system for ships. It's just whoever DPSs the other quicker is going to be the one that wins, because you just got to bring the other person's health pool down quicker than the other. Whereas this type of damage model system is going to, or I should say this new ammo type, is going to kind of upend that a little bit and make things far more interesting. And on that note about damage model, I'm wondering if this is CIG's consideration for adding the physicalized damage model they've talked about for so long. Is this like the first iteration of it? I have a lot of questions on that, because the idea of like having ammo types penetrating into the ship and start doing distortion damage or causing fires can't happen unless we have physicalized damage. So they may be working on these systems now, and this is why I'm skeptical that we're going to get it soon. Maybe we will. I really hope we do get it soon, but I'm skeptical because I feel like we need physicalized damage modeling to actually make this useful. And I've talked about damage modeling in the past. I do have a video on it, so if you want to check that out, I'll have a card pop up on the right, and it's going to be in the description as well. It's a bit of an older video, but it still encapsulates everything CIG has talked about that they want to do for physicalized damage modeling. Real quick, nitty-gritty on that is essentially what it is weapons are going to have penetration properties. You're going to have hull strengths, like tensile strengths and stuff like that for different types of armors and different types of compositions for the metals on your ship and whatnot, and different ammos are going to affect it differently. So you're going to have separate types of bullets have different penetrating properties against a gladius versus, say, a hammerhead, right? So you need that system to be in game first before you put in ballistic incendiary ammo or disarray ammo, because with the current system right now, if you have ballistic weapons, it just pings off the hull and does HP damage. And if you want to have this in-depth system of having a disarray ammo disrupting systems inside the ship, you need a penetration model for that. And we don't have that currently in game. So I'm wondering if this is going to be the first iteration. We'll see, hopefully. It's going to be quite interesting. I'm hoping CIG is planning in the next couple of months to explain some of this stuff to us and hopefully answer, like, for example, my questions I have on this stuff. Because this is going to be quite interesting. This is going to be quite a huge change to combat whenever this arrives. Again, like I said earlier in the video, there's no guarantee that this is even going to come this year. This is stuff that they're working on for this quarter, and that's all we know. We don't know anything else beyond that. But we do know that this is exactly what they want to do going forward, because this is part of the progress tracker. This means that they have done meetings on this, they have thought through this, and this is where they want to go with these new ammo types. So even if this gets delayed or pushed back, we know this is exactly the way they want things to go. So we'll see how it goes. We now have PES and stuff like that. We're going to have hull munching soon for salvage. So are we getting the first iteration of physicalized damage with this change for ammo? I'm very excited for this stuff, guys. It's going to be quite interesting. Also, is it going to affect FPS weapons? I want to know that as well, too. Are we going to get incendiary ammo for FPS weapons? Is the Karna going to change a little bit, too, right? We're supposed to be getting electron damage for guns. On top of that, one other thing that was omitted from this progress tracker was actually neutron damage. So we have neutron repeaters and neutron cannons, but right now there's nothing distinguishing them whatsoever. And this update to the progress tracker showing these new ammo types does not cover this as well. So that does leave on the table that CIG is probably looking at more ideas for these different types of ammo. And I'm kind of curious as to what that's going to be and if they're going to add on to that in the future or talk about that more, because I am very curious as to what the difference for neutron weapons will be, because right now, like I said, they're just basically more expensive laser versions of existing repeaters. There's really no distinction between them. So we'll see how they kind of throw that in for us later down the line. We'll see how it goes. All right, folks, that's it for me today. Talk about the different ammo types. Let me know what you thought. Is this interesting to you? Are you excited for this? Are you looking forward to trying this again with like the master mode systems with physicalized damage modeling? Do you have plans on using this? Like, for example, like I'm wondering, for example, if you're a pirate, I don't think you're going to be using incendiary ammo a lot, because I'm wondering how much damage that's going to be doing to a lot of the booty and the cargo that you want to take, right? These are things that you're probably going to want to start thinking about now, because it's quite interesting how three-dimensional combat's going to be going forward. So I'm kind of curious what your guys' takes on it. Do you think this is cool? Do you think they should be adding more types, or do you think that what they got now seems pretty good. Maybe I should start tweaking some things on the edges and maybe adding things like, for example, that neutron damage I was talking about. Let me know in the comments below. We'll have a conversation. Let's talk about it. All right, folks, that's it. I'll see you all in the next video. I do have some really cool stuff in the works coming out soon. I know it's been a while since I posted a video. 318 has been kicking us all in the butt. Indeed, my org mates, myself, I've been having trouble getting into the game. Luckily, the PTU patches look to be very promising. Hopefully that carries over to live. We'll see. But until then, just stay tuned. If you want to see more stuff like this, go ahead and subscribe. Of course, hit that like button if you did enjoy this video and you want more people to see it as well. But until next time, fly safe, and I'll see you all in the black.